This is episode 54 of the Gauntlet podcast. My name is Jason.
My name is Steve.
And my name is David.
Awesome. Sorry, I didn't warn you guys what order we were going to go in. So. Hey, David, welcome back to the show after all these many months.
Thanks. I was excited to be back on the show. Check out your new format, see what's going on now that Dan's not around.
Yeah, our quote, new format is just like less. that's the only change.
Well, sometimes less is more.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a shorter runtime, but just nonstop game stories.
Yeah.
Listeners, you will recognize David's voice possibly from our Dungeon World podcast, Discern Realities. He's here to fill in for Rich today, who is off on assignment researching and interviewing designers of Powered by the Apocalypse games for our brand new show, Plus One Forward. So, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I'm imagining he's doing.
That's better be what he's doing.
It better be what he's doing, I know. Awesome. Well, let's get started by talking about the games we've been playing. So, I've been gone for a few weeks. During those few weeks that I was gone, I kicked off Gauntlet New Jersey, which is my brand new face-to-face group. And it's going pretty well so far. So far, I have two regular attendees, Patrick and Val. Patrick is the cat who wrote that Cats thing.
Right.
He's the cat who wrote Cats, that story game setup procedure that you guys discussed last week on the show. So it's been super fun. On the third week, we had a fourth guy show up finally. So we might now have 4 people showing up to Gauntlet, New Jersey, which is super thrilling. We've played so far The Final Girl, Fall of Magic, and Witch, The Road to Lindisfarne. I don't have a lot to say about The Final Girl because we've talked about that a bunch, except to say that it's still awesome. I was pretty happy with our setting and our killer. We were doing a group of people who were making like an autobiographical film about an old Sunset Boulevard-esque silver screen star who disappeared and went crazy, you know. And the killer was that actress who is still haunting the old studio lot. We had lots of chances to camp it up and do some Gloria Swanson and, you know, Mommy Dearest style, you know, theatrics with our killer. So it was super fun. And something I really liked that we did in that one was we managed to incorporate a lot of like lore. So like we were kind of building out this lore about this actress and sort of the urban legends that were surrounding her and like some of the movies she worked on and all that kind of stuff. So it was really neat. It was a fun, really, really fun game of The Final Girl. We played Witch, The Road to Lindisfarne, which is a game we talked about a long time ago on the podcast.
Yeah, interesting choice for one of your first face-to-face games. I wouldn't think that would be like one of the top first 3 games I would play with new people.
Well, why do you say that, David?
So I say that because of my experience playing Witch, The Road to Lindisfarne, which we might have kind of messed it up a little.
Lindisfarne. I'm sure Lindisfarne is great, too.
Yeah, Upper Billing End, whatever.
Upper Billing End, yeah, wherever it is.
My experience with the game wasn't the best. It was still fun, but it felt like the fun came from the people who were playing and not the game.
Well, let me set it up first.
Go ahead.
Because I hear that criticism, and I have an answer to it. Witch, The Road to Lindisfarne, just the real quick setup, is... it's for 4 to 6 players. One player is playing Eloise, who is a woman who has just confessed to witchcraft, and she's being blamed for the plague that's currently killing everybody in London. The other players play her escorts to the holy island of Lindisfarne, where she is going to be burned as a witch. And the game is about that journey, right? So you start in London, and you kind of move your way through. At the beginning of the game, the Eloise player secretly decides whether she's actually guilty of witchcraft or if she's innocent of witchcraft. And depending on how the story goes, the players can decide to either burn her or not burn her once they get to Lindisfarne, and whether they get it right or not has a bearing on the quality of their epilogue. So that's the basic setup of the game. I kind of get what you're saying there, David. I was in that game with you, that less fortunate game of Witch, The Road to Lindisfarne. Kind of where I think it went wrong a little bit is, if you'll recall, David, when we were playing, we didn't really fully understand like what was going to happen at the end. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like we got to Lindisfarne and we didn't really understand the procedure that we were supposed to follow, like this ritual procedure to decide whether or not we burn the witch. And so it was a little unsatisfying at the end there. And then also, I think Yeah, I mean, the game doesn't give you a lot, right? It doesn't have much by way. There's almost no mechanics. It has no mechanized conflict resolution, for example. The characters are all predetermined, and they all have kind of predetermined like questions that you use to sort of inspire your role play and that you're trying to answer throughout the journey. The game has a couple of issues in the sense that, and this is one of the things I think we had a problem with last time, David, there aren't many scenes, period. Like, you just don't get many chances to really do much. And so it sometimes feels like a little cut short, or like this character didn't really have time to do what they wanted to do in the story.
How long does the game take?
Well, so we were scheduled for 4 hours, but I think we were wrapped up like about an hour and a half early. So about 2.5 hours, I guess.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's a set number of scenes, and that can be more or less depending on how many players you have, but it's still, every character only gets like the exact same number of scenes. So every character is going to basically get to frame 4 scenes the whole game for themselves, right?
Could it stand for some insertion of, interpersonal or interstitial scenes without breaking?
Absolutely. And we actually talked about that at the end. We talked about that would be something we would like to do, like to have little interlude scenes in between the main scenes. And I think it would probably hold up just fine.
Yeah, okay.
I will tell you, David, we had better luck with it this time.
Yeah? What did you guys do different?
We didn't do anything different except, and I'm just going to lay this at Dan's feet now, I just explained the game really well to everybody before we started.
Oh my God, throw him under the bus when he's not here to defend himself.
I'm going to throw Dan under the bus. I explained the game better, like more completely. I kind of explained exactly how many scenes everyone was getting and exactly how it was going to go. Like, we spent a fair amount of time discussing the type of story we were going to have. And to be fair, I mean, I'm giving Dan shit, but to be fair, like, I understand better the game's sort of pitfalls because I played it once already, right? So I was able to kind of tell the players, okay, you've got to answer these questions, but you also got to figure out whether you think Eloise is guilty or not. So make sure you frame your scenes with that stuff in mind, right? Like, don't just leave Eloise out of the scene because you don't have many more chances to figure out whether you think she's guilty or not. And so they were all on board with it. I think everyone felt pretty good about the story. We had a good time. There were lots of little twists in it, and the role play was really fun. Everybody was doing a really good job with their character. Patrick did a really good job of like building up the tension of whether his character was going to actually burn me or not. I was the witch, and he started reading the little phrase that indicates he is in fact going to do the final act that burns me, but then he changed it, like at the end he like changed the text a little bit and saved it.
Nice.
But that was a stupid mistake because I was a witch. So
Oh, you were guilty?
Yeah, I was guilty, but she didn't realize she was guilty. It was kind of she committed witchcraft without realizing it. So,
Oh.
Yeah. One thing that I noticed about the game, so I've played it twice now, the stories were both pretty similar. Like, they were really samey. We had like, in both stories, we had the monk who was secretly a devil worshiper, and we had the ex-crusader who couldn't, who abandoned his post because he wouldn't kill an innocent Muslim child, right? Like, we had that whole like thing again, right? And I think it's because the characters are so tightly defined and interconnected to each other with these questions that and the nature of the story, it kind of leads to some kind of similarity, or feels really similar. I gather that the community around Witch has answered that a little bit by creating brand new characters that you can play. So that might be something worth trying to kind of keep it fresh. But yeah, overall, I feel much better about it. I'm glad I played it again. That's to answer your question, David, in the beginning. That's why I put it on the calendar again, because I don't like to just give up on a game, in the hopes that...
With maybe a few exceptions.
Yeah, so with a few exceptions. Yeah. I really wanted to give this one a shot again, and I think it was a good move. I felt like, okay, this is the experience I wanted to have. Now, having said that, I think it's going to keep delivering that same experience over and over again. So
yeah. That's good.
There are a lot of games. Yeah, there are a lot of games. There's no reason you have to play one game all the time. Right?
Yeah, that's good though. That's good to know that it holds up better if you're taking some extra time to unpack it in the front end.
You really do. Yeah, you've got to really unpack it, and you've got to really explain like the sort of like the goals. And Patrick's little cats thing actually was pretty helpful in that, because one of the things you're supposed to just in his little cats thing is the like the goal, or what you're aiming for, right?
Yeah.
In the game. And so that kind of helped me tailor my thinking. This is what we need to be doing in the scenes. Like, this is what we're aiming for. But yeah, it was not bad. I also played Fall of Magic, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. I'll let somebody else talk for a minute. So, David, I gathered you played Space Alert.
I did, yeah.
Ooh, I want to hear about this.
So I've played, I played three games recently. I've played Dungeon World. Who would have thought?
Imagine that.
You don't say.
Who would have thought? And then I've played some Choose Your Own Adventure, kind of a casual game to introduce to some new players. And then I played Space Alert with some friends at work. Space Alert is actually a board game. It's not a role-playing game per se. I suppose you could say that you're taking on the role of one of these survivors, or I guess they're actually supposed to be workers on this spaceship. It's so the game setup is you're all going to be space cadets on this, what's it called? Sitting Duck class spacecraft.
It's good. I like that.
The Sitting Duck is going to warp into a sector. It cannot move. It will sit there and scan. Meanwhile, while it's scanning, every alien in that vicinity will see it as a hostile that is trying to scan their technology and come and try and attack it. You cannot leave until it is finished scanning. Once it finishes scanning, it will warp out.
That's his job, is just to go in there and scan and get shot at and then leave.
That's your job. So you just try and defend this stupid, giant floating blob of a spaceship while it tries to scan and pisses off the aliens. How it works mechanically is you have a CD player or MP3 file playing on your phone or whatever that calls out prompts. They call out game prompts. The prompts will tell you, you're going to have a threat at this time. And so you'll flip over the threat card, and that will tell you, like, what is going to attack your ship in how many turns. And you're trying to keep track of all of this in real time because you only have 10 minutes or 15 minutes if you're playing an advanced mission to play the entire mission. And you put your actions down, what your person is doing. And then after you do all of that, and you're trying to frantically move game pieces to track what's going on, after you do all of that, you reset the game and flip over all your action cards because you play them face down. And you make sure that you did what you actually thought that you did. And not something catastrophically different, like go left instead of right.
Right, yeah.
It's fantastic. It has a really steep learning curve, but it does a good job of kind of alleviating that by having these training missions that just add a little bit more rules on each time, so you're getting more and more used to it and not having the full-blown game all at once.
I remember that. I remember it had like this ramp up. Like you would start on those early missions and then like it would gradually add more and more different types of complications so you got used to it. That method of like rolling out a game or rolling out gameplay, it has a name. It has like a name like in video game development, and I can't think of what it is, but it works pretty well in that game. Hey, tell me if am I going to state some incorrect trivia here? Isn't that the very first game you and I played together?
Space Alert?
Yeah.
No, it is not. The first game...
It was Letters from Whitechapel, wasn't it?
Yeah, Letters from Whitechapel was the first game we played together.
The week before we played Letters from Whitechapel, before I met you, we played Space Alert, and that's why I thought it was Space Alert.
Ah, man. I wish I'd been there, because I love Space Alert. I'm always looking for people to play it. It's kind of a high-stress game. And it can turn into some quarterbacking issues if you have a big group and only one person knows how to play.
Yeah, it's definitely got some quarterbacking issues, right? I mean, like if you've got a bunch of like hapless people and one person who actually knows how to play the game, yeah, they're going to be kind of doing a lot of it. But
yeah,
how many players does it support?
It supports up to 4, I believe, 2 to 4.
Oh, okay.
I just remember being really embarrassed. I was really embarrassed as I played it because we were playing it in a fucking restaurant.
Oh.
And like David said, it has like a CD that you play or like this audio file. So we're in this restaurant with people who are trying to eat their dinner and it's like, incoming fire,
Yeah, it's like a robotic voice too, and it has little sound effects.
Yeah. I can't even do it, David. I can't even remember what it sounds like.
It's like alert, threat level, T-7, alert.
Perfect.
Well, okay. Going into that game, did you know you were going to be playing a game with a soundtrack in a restaurant?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Poor Dead Rob put that on the schedule, and it sounded great to me. And then he brought it, and I pulled out a CD or like a boombox, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" No, it was good fun though. I liked it a lot.
That game, Escape: Curse of the Temple, also runs off of a soundtrack, and that one would probably be less embarrassing because there's it's mostly just music, except for rare exception. But to start the sound file off, there's a big booming voice that says "Escape," except it sounds like "Ass-cape." and it's just that would not work.
I love it. Okay, well, David, I'm going to ask you to save your Dungeon World talk for our other show, unless you have something just really pressing you want to say about Dungeon World right now.
I mean, I could talk on and on and on about Dungeon World. In fact, I do, and we have another show for that. So
we've got hours and hours of you doing that already. So let's get that. All three of us played Cheat Your Own Adventure though recently. So why don't we talk about that? Steve, why don't you kick us off on Cheat Your Own Adventure?
So yesterday we got to play Cheat Your Own Adventure, and we played 3 different games. We started off with a sort of more standard, I would say, expected, like, source material appropriate Cheat Your Own Adventure, adventure game that I would not have been surprised to find in one of those books.
Yeah, like camp, sci-fi, adventure,
right,
pulp,
right. That went fairly well. Our second and third games were a Lovecraftian mystery, and then a B-movie slasher flick from the perspective of the killer.
It was so good. Oh my god, it was so good.
And those 2 games have me looking at Choose Your Own Adventure in a whole new light, really. Because I'd only played one occasion before, 2 games. One, again, sort of very adventure fare, and one was our patented, extremely serious melodrama, Cheat Your Own Adventure.
Cheat Your Sad Adventure, yeah.
Right. After those 2 games, I just want to play it all the time. Why are we not playing Cheat Your Own Adventure right now?
Cheat Your Own Adventure has got to be, it remains, like a year and some change later since I've first discovered it, one of my favorite games. It is so great.
Yeah.
One of the things I really loved about what we did yesterday was, like you said, we played like these 3 very different styles of games. The game is incredibly adaptable, right?
Yeah.
Like it fits any setting, any tone. The Lovecraftian one actually worked out really great because I made the point of kind of like doing a little bit of expectation setting before we played, and so I took a page out of Graham Walmsley and also Lovecraft-esque, and kind of suggesting that we not show anything overtly supernatural on screen unless we chose a page number that killed us,
Right.
And so that worked out really great. I thought the story was really tight and actually scary. Like it was like genuinely a little creepy, I thought. What'd you think?
Yeah, there were some really nice moments in there.
It was pretty awesome. But that third one, oh my god, that third one.
That
third one.
And that's the one where we had no
so
expectations going in. We just sort of had a conversation. Kevin suggested like B-movie comedy or like horror comedy, and that got turned into, why don't we just do The Final Girl? And then we realized, well, we sort of need a POV, and that turned into, well, why don't we do, it's a slasher flick from the horror's perspective, from the killer's perspective.
It was great. It was so
holy
good.
crap! Yeah.
So we should probably explain to listeners that normally, the game is structured so that, it's like a choose your own adventure book, and all the players, you narrate, and then the players give you options to pick from based off when you get to a decision point. And if you pick a bad one, which is determined by a die roll, then you die. But what we decided to do was, instead of the killer dying, he we had several different types of outcomes, but all the outcomes kind of revolved around the spirit of his dead mother, like shaming him and telling him what a waste of life he was,
Yeah.
And then basically what he was doing from scene to scene was, from his perspective, we were like seeing all these filthy fornicating college kids at a camp, and smoking their weed and having sex and all this other stuff. And basically, if you were successful, you like just got to kill teenagers, right? In like gruesome ways. I loved it. I thought it was so good. Like it was a cool perspective on that story. It was a cool way of using the Cheat Your Own Adventure rules. We managed to work in lots of the tropes of the genre, like into our options. So like someone suggested at one point, like, so one of the victims was like running away, and one of the options was, if you walk at a perfectly normal pace but still manage to catch up somehow, turn to page 85, right? Like it had all that stuff. It was pretty great.
There were lots of ironically appropriate deaths. I had the most fun figuring out ways to describe what the character was experiencing from his perspective.
Right. Yeah.
It's not a neutral tone. It's not, the adventure fiction. You encounter an ice cave or whatever. It's you smell the fornicators.
Right. Yeah. Cheat Your Own Adventure is pretty awesome. David, how'd your game go?
So it was great. I did something similar where we tried something a little different with what Cheat Your Own Adventure could do. I was playing with some people who haven't played many role-playing games. Some of them hadn't played any at all. It was just kind of like a casual, funny kind of game to get them into the headspace, because I plan on playing some other games with them later. We decided, after we played the first game, where you just kind of play vanilla, choose your own adventure, we played a Rick and Morty choose your own adventure.
Ooh.
I don't know what that is. Yeah, what is that?
If you're not familiar, Rick and Morty is, it's like a spoof of, what's it called?
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. Thank you. It's a spoof of Back to the Future where Rick is a mad scientist, genius kind of guy who's like an alcoholic, and then his grandson Morty is like his little buddy who's going on these adventures with him, like through other dimensions and things like that. It's a Cartoon Network show. It's hilarious. You should watch it.
It's really good.
I
Yeah.
don't watch cartoons, so yeah. No, I'm kidding. No, that's awesome. It's so adaptable, right? You could do anything with Choose Your Own Adventure. It's so good.
Yeah. So the way that we changed it up is like, we had the two of them were the you. Instead of saying you, we said Rick does this and Morty does that. And then whenever one or both of them would be killed, that was, the failed result.
Okay.
And we had a little adventure. Worked really well.
Cool.
How did the sort of dual POVs work? How well did it work, I should say?
It was fine because we narrated it from the third person.
Okay.
We said Rick does this and Morty does that. But
okay.
the condition for failure was if either of them, if you fail, one or both of them must die.
Gotcha.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to mention real quick. So in our game, we played over Hangouts, which was the first time I played over Hangout. First Cheat Your Own Adventure, I'd played over Hangouts at least. One thing we did, whenever there was a die roll required, the person making the die roll just rolled actual physical dice. And since we're hundreds of miles from each other or thousands of miles from each other, it was easy to just keep those rolls secret until it became clear whether it was a success or failure via the narration.
Oh.
And I thought that was really cool.
It worked really well.
Yeah.
Kevin, one of the players, did a great job with that. He kind of opened our eyes to the way of doing it that way because he rolled his dice at one point during the horror one and didn't say what it was. He just began narrating, and it really, really upped the tension because it was like, holy shit, is he going to actually die at the end of this or not?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was
that's
good. Yeah, it was a nice little twist on the Cheat Your Own Adventure formula. Yeah. It was great. Yeah.
There was that one where I really shouldn't have made the roll. I should not have succeeded. And I think, Jason, you had picked me, or whoever picked the option picked me because it sounded, like it would make for a ridiculous and satisfying death. But I rolled an 11.
Right, I know. I remember that. I was like, damn it. I was like, this is the one that I want him to die on. Yeah. Oh, well. Cheat Your Own Adventure is awesome. Is there anything that you guys want to say about it?
I like the secret dice roll so much. I might try to play this Wednesday, or certainly some Wednesday soon. I might just use a dice cup and hand it off to whoever's making the roll and tell them to, keep it secret until
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
One last thing I wanted to add to Cheat Your Own Adventure is I'm very excited. I'm going to be playing it this weekend with my family, and none of them have ever played any role-playing games.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
I looped them in
cool.
by telling them it was my birthday, and we're going to do this short little game, and you're going to play it.
Yes. Use all the powers at your disposal to get your non-gamers to play role-playing games. That's what I say.
Yeah, good luck.
That's all that I wanted to say.
Well, like I said, I got to play Fall of Magic. I'm still going to hold on to that one for just a second and first talk about a couple of games that are connected to Meg Baker's Playing Nature's Year game cycle, which we've mentioned on the show in the past. Our friend Tim ran one of the games from that collection called A Branch of May. We played it on May 1st for the express purpose of welcoming the summer into our lives. It's a really, really simple little die passing game where the Green Man is trying to find the May Queen, and the Green Man will go search down by the stream, and then we roll dice and we describe how the May Queen reminds us of the stream, or how the stream reminds us of the May Queen. And now the Green Man's going to go search for her in the freshly tilled fields, and then we describe how the May Queen is like the freshly tilled fields. It's a really simple little, almost more like a little poem, or sort of just it feels like a traditional game or something. It's not really like a role playing game at all. But it was fun. It
feels like a traditional game, like D&D.
No. A little more traditional than that even. It was really fun. It only lasts like 20 or 30 minutes. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's the sort of game that you can imagine playing with like some little kids or something,
Yeah.
And while you're playing it, you recite these like ritual phrases that are like kind of like a little poem about the May Queen and May and everything that Meg has written, and they're very lovely. And it was good. It's really just a neat little exercise, really. It was kind of a fun way of practicing your description skills, It was kind of like GMing training or something, because like the whole game is about like describing things in the environment and how those things are like the May Queen. And then whoever ends up being the May Queen at the end, they get to ask favors of everybody at the table. And so our May Queen asked all of us to offer up our opinions of the game and like what we thought. And so that was also our little recapping the game at the end. So yeah, it was cute. It was fun. I also got to play Stephen Dewey's upcoming game called To Serve Her Wintry Hunger, which is a pretty good name, if I'm being honest. It's a pretty tight name, To Serve Her Wintry Hunger. This game is inspired by the games in Meg Baker's Playing Nature's Year Cycle, and you can kind of see it. Like it's a game that focuses on the natural environment. It focuses on describing that environment. It deals with the seasons, that sort of thing. In the game, you each play an evil spirit. This is where it gets off the train.
Right.
You play an evil spirit who is trying to capture a human for this winter goddess, this Japanese winter goddess. I think her name is Yuki-onna, if I'm not mistaken. Yuki-onna. There are 4 different spirits. There's cold, flame, fear, and hunger. Each of you are going out into the forest using your powers and your tricks to make this human cold, to make them scared, to make them hungry, and so forth, in order to kill them you don't kill them, you bring them alive to Yuki-onna. And then at the end, Yuki-onna gives rewards to whoever did the best. It was a neat little game. It also has like kind of real basic little sort of dice pooling thing that you do.
Yeah.
Sort of determines like how your spirit is doing vis-a-vis the other ones, because depending on what place you're in, like relative to the other spirits, you don't get to describe as cool things. Only the people who are in the lead get to describe cool things. You have to describe like how you're kind of fucking up and kind of muddling your way through it, not really succeeding. But the positions change, it's kind of you jockey back and forth. One thing that he's added to the game, which was a little cute touch, is you have a piece of folded white paper, and whenever you do something really good in the game that gets the group closer to catching the human, you get to make a big, beautiful cut into your folded piece of white paper. And at the end, you unfold the paper to show your snowflake, and the quality of your snowflake kind of determines like some of the stuff at the end as well. So yeah, it was a cute little
you have to have the most beautiful, unique snowflake.
Right. Yeah. And now you can fail catching your human in the game, and if you fail, then the person who was doing the best actually does not get to unfold their snowflake. Their snowflake stays folded. That's their punishment.
Oh.
For failing Yuki-onna, right? Yeah, but if you win, if you succeed, the person who was in the lead gets to like have control over the epilogue at the end, like the spirit's relationship to Yuki-onna. It was a really nice game. It was really lovely. Steven's done a really nice job with the text. It's very beautiful. You have to answer specific questions at different times in the game, which help flesh out the fiction. It was great. I liked it. And again, it doesn't last very long, less than an hour. Really, really nice game. Steven is the guy who wrote 10 Candles. That was the big game he's known for.
Oh yeah.
So,
okay.
Oh, okay.
So it was fun. He ran it. Yeah, he ran this for us. It was pretty cool. And I think he's going to release it through his Patreon. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Sweet.
Yeah, cool.
Fall of Magic. Oh boy. This game is something else. Gauntlet, New Jersey. We kicked off Gauntlet, New Jersey with Fall of Magic. Fall of Magic is Ross Coleman's scroll game. So that's what most people are going to know it as. In Fall of Magic, you play a bunch of like apprentices or proteges of this character called the Magus in a land that where magic is dying. And the Magus is going on a journey, and you're going with him. and you travel from place to place, and then presumably you get to the end and you have some final scenes with the Magus or whatever. We didn't get that far. The neat thing about the game, the thing that it's known for, is that it has this physical scroll that contains the map of the game, and you roll it out as you play, and you move from location to location, framing up your scenes. You have tokens, and you move from location to location, having scenes of a different type. Every location has multiple different scene options, and each of those scene options has a story prompt that you have to incorporate into your scene somehow. And you just go from place to place and kind of, it's a little freeform. There isn't a whole lot to inform like what you should be doing from scene to scene, except for those story prompts. But it turns out those story prompts were sufficient. I mean, they were really all we kind of needed, combined with just the sort of this visual object, that you're playing on. It's enough to inspire you to have cool scenes. I really quite liked it. I want to kind of just run through some things that I loved about this game, because there were so many things I loved about this game. The physical components are utterly compelling. I am not normally the sort of person who gets into this aspect of gaming, right? Like, I don't give a shit about pretty dice, and I'm not really a big, like, oh, I love my books have to be pristine and beautiful because they are beautiful objects and I don't want them messed with. I'm not normally that kind of gamer, right?
Yeah.
This thing is it's so compelling. Like, just the beautiful materials that everything's made of, like these coins that you use as your tracking pieces, the artwork, the scroll itself. It's so gorgeous, and you can't help but get sucked into it. It's an incredibly powerful tool in that way. That was a really nice thing. That almost goes without saying, though. I mean, that's one of the main reasons why you would have backed this on.
You know that at a glance.
You know that at a glance, right? The thing that I didn't know I was going to love about the game was you can go at a pace that works for your group, and you don't feel the need to just rush on to the next thing. In a sort of like counterintuitive way, you have all this like really cool map that, you can go to all these places, but you actually don't necessarily feel compelled to do it. Like, our story was unfurling in a way that, we spent a little bit of time at some locations, but then at other locations we spent a long time. Like, we spent like half the session at this one location called the Woods of the Grey Rangers, and it was amazing. Like, in our story, we arrived at this wood run by these people called the Grey Rangers, and our Grey Rangers were kind of a sort of backwards, semi-ritualistic and hints of cannibalistic, like mountain men kind of. And our Magus abandoned us for 5 months at the halls of the Grey Rangers while she went off to go do Magus business. And so we had like this really, really like protracted stay in this one location that had almost like its own like separate side story going on. And it was really, really great. And it was incredible because the 5 or 6 different scene prompt options were enough to maintain. Like it was enough. Like you could follow those really, really simple scene framing prompts and maintain like scene after scene with it and keep it going. And it was really, really nice. Some locations were kind of dreamy, and we were kind of just moving through them and being very sort of meditative in our narration. And then other times it felt a little bit more traditional. And then we got to the Grey Rangers, and it was like this, almost like this suspense story, that was kind of like unraveling as we're in this like, we're trapped at this place because the Magus is gone and the winter's rolled in, and so we're with these people who are like really backwards. It was pretty neat.
Is this meant to be a one-shot, or can this be an ongoing game?
So I think you're supposed to be able to wrap it up in about 3 or 4 sessions.
Okay.
And that's about right based off the pace we went. Because we like moved through some of the locations pretty quickly. We would have some cool scenes and like, oh, okay, we're done with this. Let's move on. And we stayed in some other places a little longer. But based off the pace we were going, I think we would have wrapped up the whole thing in about 3 sessions.
So, with the scene prompts that it gives you per location, like what would happen if you guys were, felt compelled to come back to the Forest of the Grey Rangers? Would you just sort of be out of luck?
I don't think you can. I think once you move the Magus forward, so the way it works is, so we're at a location, okay, and there are 4 or 5 different like little sub locations basically that are essentially just different scene types and with a story prompt. And it's my turn. I put my token down on one of those to have a scene. The next person goes, and the next person goes, and the next person goes. After we've all gone once on that location, At that point, once it reaches your turn, anyone can take the Magus and move the Magus forward to the next location. And so you each have to have at least one scene at that location. But if it's going well, like if you're really enjoying that location, you can kind of stay, right? But once someone moves the Magus forward, I think that's it. I don't think there's any going back. So, okay. Yeah. That's my recollection of the rules anyway. A dynamite game. It's got, in addition to the scroll, like there's also like a map on the back of the scroll that represents like the underground. And I think Jason Morningstar helped develop that one. There are these little islands that you can go to that are represented by these big cards. Just got lots of cool stuff. The one last thing I want to say about it is it feels remarkably like Lord of the Rings, but not in the way that fantasy games usually feel like Lord of the Rings. What I mean by that,
you mean shove a dwarf in it,
right? Yeah, like so it's not about like dwarves and orcs or even like real overt magic or anything like that. It's more, it feels like Lord of the Rings in the sense that you're on this journey. Okay, you have this Gandalf type more powerful character who, in our story at least, had kind of their own agenda and were doing their own kind of thing, and we were just kind of along with them. And so there's a bit of mystery there. And also, it was just about our camaraderie and our sort of esprit de corps on the journey, and like how we got to know each other, and the sort of fellowship, if I can throw that word out there, our sort of fellowship that we built for ourselves on the journey. So it was great. Fall of Magic is terrific. I have no idea if people can still get a hold of it. I don't even know. I got it on Kickstarter, but if you can, go get it. It's dynamite.
Yeah, surely we can find out if there's a link for purchase. Put it in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and just do community feedback, and then we'll wrap up the episode. It's time for community feedback.
He's back.
There it is.
One of the Gauntlet UK guys, I think he's actually Gauntlet Australia, but if that's a thing, it's not. But he plays with Gauntlet UK. His name's Tor. He occasionally posts these things on the community page that are stories about gaming with his 10-year-old son. And they're great. I love reading them.
Yeah.
They're really good. I love reading them. They just fill my heart with warmth and delight because he's a good writer, for one thing. And his sort of, you can tell like the pleasure he gets in playing games with his son and kind of teaching his young son how to play role-playing games is a lot of fun. So he tells this story. We'll put a link so that you guys can go read it yourselves. But essentially, the summary of the story is, what I gather from the way he games with his son is he lets his son fill in a lot of the fiction, okay? And a lot of times his son's fiction involves introducing gods and sacred artifacts that like he can take advantage of, right? As well as like ancient prophecies that always involve him, So we all
got to game the system.
Yeah. And so the story is about like how his son beckoned this goddess for this help, and the goddess sends him on this errand, this mission to go clear out these beetles out of this temple. He wasn't like very adequately prepared, and so it all went south. And in the end, the temple collapses, and the goddess turns her eyes away from him. And I think like his son was like a little sad about the outcome, but Tor says, I rubbed his failure in even more by describing the huge statue of the goddess crumbling and crashing down on the temple as he flew off the island into the rain. He felt awful the whole time, and I loved it with all my sadistic parent heart.
Oh my god!
Yeah, the story it's just a good little story. I recommend listeners go read it for themselves.
Yeah, very entertaining.
It's super entertaining. It's not too long. It's definitely worth going and reading. I really love it because I tell you what, I whenever I hear about like Rich plays with his kid a lot too, and some other people I know like Ray Otis, he plays with his kids. Whenever I see people talking about like how they played games with their kids, all I can think about is that is so fucking cool, and I wish that had been like my parents, like I wish like, man, I wish my parents had played games with me like that, I couldn't even convince my parents to play like, Monopoly or whatever, right? So it was, I always love those stories. So even though I am a childless spinster and probably always will be, it's good. Boy, I feel like I've done a lot of talking. Whew, I'm exhausted.
You had to get it out of your system. You've been gone for so long.
I've been gone for 3 weeks.
Right.
I know, yeah, I had to get it out of my system. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we go?
I don't think so. I love Tor's thing, though. I mean, that'll teach his son to be egotistical and call gods.
That's good. So good.
I like that the goddess, was true to the letter of their agreement and gave him the thing he requested, and then was just like, please leave immediately, and then never talked to him again.
That's good. Awesome. Well, that was our show. We had lots of brand new games to talk about this week, which was awesome. I was excited about that. And David, I'm so happy that you were able to join us.
Yay.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
And Steve, thank you for being on, as always.
You bet.
Listeners, if you want to get in touch with us, we have a website now. It's gauntlet-rpg.com, gauntlet-rpg.com, gauntlet-rpg.com. Go there.
Woo!
Now that I've said it 3 times, I will warn you, it's not that great. It's okay. It's a work in progress. I'm not good at website making, but I think it's a good start. We will have all the episodes. We won't have all the episodes. We'll have all brand new episodes on the website, as well as links to our community page, our Gauntlet meetups page, and all that stuff. So go find us there. And that's it. So thanks again, guys.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks.
Thanks, listeners. Let's do an editing break because we lost David.
Uh-oh.
Let's figure out where David is, and then we'll get back, and then we'll kind of pick up.
All right.
Let me pull up Hangouts and see if I can talk to him and find out what's going on. Okay, Rich, I promise this episode's not super long. It's just we lost David. He's typing now in the Hangout.
Oh, there we go.
David, why did you leave the podcast? When are you coming back? There you are. I've been singing a song for you, David, till you got back.
You're singing a song.